Hey, I'm Alex Southey, and you are listening to another episode of Your Worst Song. Just right off the bat, still trying to get used to the equipment that I got, and I'm. This one was done over Zoom with Rachel of ZINNIA, and she was awesome. But just letting you folks know, you'll hear static on my end a little bit. I think it's something between what I'm doing with my Focusrite Scarlett 2i2 or whatever it is, the settings that I have on it, but also maybe using it through Zoom. I think maybe has its own controls, and so that plus what I probably incorrectly did on my own led to some static and that kind of thing. So sorry, but the contents of this chat are rewarding, I think. Rachel was just very giving in terms of what she had to say about her personal life and how it impacts her writing, and about her family of what sounds like free thinkers and artists and supportive people. And there's a lot to be learned in this one, in terms of how to have a healthy relationship to the arts. So, I'm Alex Southey. This is Rachel of ZINNIA. Enjoy.
I basically feel like if it's gonna be cold in the winter, I would prefer that it's just snowy because it's just so much brighter and I don't do so well with the gray.
Absolutely.
And I love that it just derails city life. It's been so cool the last couple days to like walk around my neighborhood and just see like so many adults just flailing and like trying to like just push through and get on with their lives and business and work, and then you just can't continue as normal,
No, I
and the
totally
kids
agree.
enjoy it.
It's yeah, and the kids enjoy it. That's very cute to see, like kids being pulled in toboggans down a sidewalk and stuff. It's adorable. But yeah, when I walked out, first of all, it's sort of amusing in a slight day after tomorrow way, where you get to come out and you get to see all the snow piled up next to your door, and you go out and you shovel
Yeah.
like four times. But when I first came out after the first morning of the intense snowfall, I kind of looked both directions. I'm on Lansdowne, and there were just cars with their emergencies on, like blinking all the way
Wow.
down, just because of how bad it was, and there
Wow.
hadn't been any snow removal. But hey, as someone with, obviously, I hope no one was hurt and everything went fine. But if everybody's fine, then I think kind of amusing to see, kind of a fun little Toronto
Oh
thing. I
yeah.
don't know.
Yeah, and like luckily my life functions. Yeah, I was able to just like um kind of like take a true snow day. Like all the days that it's been this epic, I haven't had to leave the house for work or anything. And so I just like every mission that I went on, like I walked to my drummer's house and it ended up taking like an hour and a half because I got like lost in a park in the snow and just took so long to like get down like one little
Oh my God.
stretch of sidewalk. But it was like, it's just fun.
It's fun, and I find it brings out people's compassion for each other. I saw people, for example, shoveling their neighbors' walkways, or just
Mm,
the general sidewalk to make it easier for the general public, which is not something they have to do, but is really, really nice.
yeah.
Yeah. So tell me more about what your day to day is like. For those, obviously we don't do video right now, but behind you is a bunch of instruments and it's a very artistic looking studio kind of thing to me,
Oh,
which
yeah.
I love and want to talk about. So there are things that I could just choose. Obviously, you're a musician. People listening to that will know that. But how about the artwork in the back? Is that the
The
one?
artwork
Yeah.
is from a friend of mine in Victoria, or sorry, she's in Seattle, and
Okay.
she's actually like the her work art is doing medical drawings. She's like an illustrator for medical journals.
For like
So she's
anatomy
like
and stuff like that.
anatomy, like she's
Whoa.
Danny Berge, and she's like wildly accurate and detail oriented. But she did like a few life drawing courses last year and posted these pictures online, and I just felt so swept up into like I just need it. I love sketch form.
Oh,
Like I
really?
love this quick sketch, like
Mm-hmm.
the gesture and the motion.
Yes,
And
what we can see right
oftentimes,
now
like,
is, sorry, just like it's a like red shade. It looks red or pinkish. There's a reddish hue. Uh, what is it actually of?
it's a woman.
Oh, it's a
Um,
oh, of course. Okay, now I see it. I'm much closer. People listening. It's a woman
yeah.
turning to her right shoulder, sort of almost in a delicate sort of ballet-esque sort of thing, but it's just shoulders up.
Yeah, and this is another one of hers, this face.
Oh yeah, that's lovely. That's like more serious and a lot more soft focus, if you will.
Yeah.
To me, anyway.
And I think
Maybe it's just a blurry.
oftentimes whenever I see like before and after pictures of people's hair of like this is me with bedhead and then this is me with like after I've done my curls and my styling, I always prefer the first one.
Yes. Oh my God.
And
So
like
that's what,
same with art,
same
like
with
I
sketches.
often like the first sketch the
So
best.
related to that, because I think that's really common in music, the music version of it. Do you
Yeah.
suffer from demoitis? You really like your demos, and you almost prefer to work on those?
Sometimes like like a lot of this last record, I was just making the demos at home as like part of a weekly songwriting group I was in. And I just had to like get something to show. And um yeah, interestingly, I mean, I love the full recording process. The part I struggle with is mixing. And I find that that moment where you're trying to like freeze it for good is like the terror for me.
Okay.
Um,
Finding out when to take the snapshot kind of thing.
Yeah, and like I think the precarity of how like if one vocal is slightly too loud, it all feels like wrong, wrong, wrong to me.
Yes.
And
Yes.
I just want to like shelve it. Um,
Hmm.
but I this time I worked with Michael Fong in Toronto, and he was like so amazing at like doing that search with me for like, oh no, it just needed that like tinge different of reverb, and now it's like boom, there it
Right.
is.
It fits in very nicely instead of seeming disheveled.
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit? Go ahead.
There were a couple of songs on this record, Summer Jam and Reaching For You, that we recorded with the full band. We tried mixing it like along with the sessions we did in Anacortes. And then when I was sitting with Michael, it was like, oh, it's missing this lightness, like this bounce that it needs to
Hmm.
have. And so in that case, we went back to the demos and we're like, I found it somehow in the demo. So we had to like really do like a full reconstruction to try to like capture the demo magic that had happened. Um,
And so,
and
what was it in that case? What was that answer? I'm so curious. How did you find the lightness again?
I think it was like those two songs are kind of escapism songs on the record.
Hmm.
And there's something like we sort of drew from Italian disco from the 70s, and there's something like really like hodgepodge about that type of disco that was like replicating American disco, but it's like even like the lyrics that they're choosing, like it's like it's a bit of a like inspired by one thing, but sort of lost in translation and then becoming its own weird thing.
Yes.
So it needed like kind of a bit of that like rough cut thrown together.
Mm.
And actually, whereas like I love the catharsis of the full band rockers on the album, those two songs, the band felt heavy.
Mm.
And it's just that we just didn't quite catch it in the recording sessions we had. So we like, yeah, Michael and I just kind of redid the synth and bass and like just popped it up a bit.
Wow. Okay. Well, thank you for trying to describe that. I love those hard to articulate things about music because that's actually where the really interesting stuff lies, I think. And it reveals how you approach music, kind of.
Mm.
But talk a little bit more about Michael Fong. That was his name, the mixer.
Yeah.
So, how did you
Yeah.
find him?
Um, he, well, my friend Tara Canangera mixed and recorded with him.
Mm-hmm.
He's his brother plays in Tara's band, and a lot of my bandmates play in that band as well. So
Gotcha.
he's just sort of part of my Toronto world. And um, in the summer, I just felt that this album, the way I was mixing it with the sound engineer from Anacortes, it just was like the long distance was hard, and I just felt like I
Mm,
want to be like in the room, like um adjusting this. Like it had to be like chemical and like real life.
yeah.
And so I mixed one song, I mixed Rebound just as a tester with Michael.
Mm-hmm.
And his studio at that point was a 6-minute bike ride from my house in the East End. And it just felt like immediate magic. Like
Yeah.
just bike down there, cuddle up with his little dog, like piece through these mixes. And he just really got it right away. Like I showed up and he had a playlist of what he thought the production inspirations were, and they were
Oh,
like,
wow.
he nailed it. Like he sees where I'm at.
That's lovely. And sometimes that, like the best connections are almost without work. Like it sounds like you guys just met up and you went, yeah, this is correct. There was
Yeah.
no developing chemistry. You just sort of had chemistry, it sounds like. Which
Yeah, and
which
and
really
he has
works
like a sorry.
which really works to just help the lightness that you were trying to achieve, I assume.
Yeah, and it's the lightness, and it's also that like really healthy like creative push and pull of like he has a vision, I have a vision. We're both trying to like just do the hard work of like balancing those. And
Mm-hmm.
there were points when I would be like the drums here are too loud or something, and he'd be like, I don't think so. And I actually like I hear what you're feeling, but it's actually I think this tweak that's gonna do it. And so
Mm.
like all of that, him giving credit to my instincts and interpreting them that in the way that like made sense for the sound. Like I just really trusted our dialogue.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And like what you're saying too, you're sort of giving an example of you trust each other so much and you sort of get each other enough that you can be critical in a way that you both like can it's constructive is my
Right.
point. Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to get back a little bit to the writing weekly writing circle that you have. Tell me about getting into it. Tell me about it because I feel like when people hear a creative art circle, it's almost always like writers who get together or something like that's how I feel. This is the stereotype. So I want to hear about musicians. How's that work?
Yeah. Um I think writing for me has always been like a therapeutic. It's the way I have like found to make it through hard stuff in my life.
Mm.
And because of that, I've traditionally been really wary of any type of structure that would like force me to write, because I sort of like I need to be precious about writing and make sure it's like coming from a place not of obligation, but of like
Mm-hmm.
real catharsis and joy. And like, yeah, I'd always been resistant to the idea of like structurized, you have to write to this prompt. And,
Mm-hmm.
but in the pandemic, which like aligned with my divorce, like I just felt so frozen
Mm.
and like knew things were going to start having to move at some point.
Yeah.
Um, and I first kind of like journeyed into pushing that with these creative writing workshops that my friend Dacha Bloomfield was running
Mm-hmm.
called Rigmarole. And that was nice because I just took off the table the idea of having to write a song with it.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
And because it just wasn't coming out in that way for me. So I just like did essays and poems and prompts about like my weird family and whatever came up. And it
Yeah.
just felt good to just feel like, okay, this is still stirring in me, the creative voice.
Yeah. Yeah.
But then,
As go ahead.
oh yeah, a couple, maybe like 2 years into the pandemic, then Charlotte Cornfield reached out and was like, we have a Zoom group going with like songwriters. Like the other one, people in that group were from Alberta mostly at the time.
Oh.
And it for that period in the pandemic, it was a weekly thing, and there was a light pressure to like bring something.
Mm-hmm.
It could be like just a verse, it could just be like a chord idea. And that little bit of pressure ended up being like so wonderful for me because I just wanted to have something to show. And sometimes I would just write like what I would have probably thrown out. And then as soon as you show it and like put it in the light in front of other people, you like just hear your what's special about what you're saying, and like you could just see it hit people and be like, oh, actually I should give this a bit of credit,
Oh
this
wow.
song.
So it takes seeing sort of the reflection of your song in other people to actually go, oh, okay, yeah, you're making me see it in another way. It shouldn't be something like you said, if I was alone and hadn't shown it, I would have thrown it out or not used it. But they,
Yeah, I think I just didn't have a lot of follow through for anything in that period because I was just like such a wreck. But you know, you just kind of hit upon certain ideas, and then when you would see it, that it was like soothing for me to write it, like to get it out of my system. And then when I put it in front of them, it was like I could just like hear so strongly like my individual unique voice,
hmm,
which everyone has. But
yeah, no, of course,
it was like, oh right, like this like has a gravity to it.
hmm, and oh, that's so interesting, and frankly, it sounds very nice and warm. Is that circle still going?
Um, we no, we found like it expanded, like more and more people started
Right,
joining it, and I think everyone's lives just like filled up. Like life without the pandemic
of course.
moved really quick. People's albums are coming out, babies were born. Like it just was like it ended up being a um like a brief little window,
Hmm,
and I'm sure it will like come back. It'd be nice if it came back in person in Toronto or something, but
right.
um, it felt like it served a very specific purpose those years.
Good. Well, that sounds really nice. I hope that inspires other people to create their own circles, or in any arts sort of thing. Just keep the socialization going, kind of thing. Uh,
Yeah,
I'm curious. I want to talk, if you're okay with it, a little bit about. It doesn't. It's not about your divorce, but about how the divorce plays a role in your creations and that kind of thing. Because something I noticed seeing you perform live is you don't shy away from talking about it, or at least mentioning it, whereas maybe
yeah.
some other people might just, you know, for all the reasons you can imagine. So, what was that decision like? What was that first decision like? Because you could keep it close to your chest if you wanted to, and just not have it. It could still inspire all of your work, but just not
Yeah.
be known to
I
other
think
people.
like since um I'd say like the first song I ever wrote with words was in high school, dealing with like big family stuff, like
Hmm.
mental illness in the family and divorce, and like um I just like I really need the writing to help like structure, like just understand what's going on in
Right.
my life, and
It's a filter.
that has rung through like this is just my means of making it through things.
Hmm.
And yeah, maybe the divorce was the first time that I felt a bit of wariness of being like, because it involves another person,
Yeah.
and I felt like I didn't have an interest in like dragging him through the mud or
It's
sorry.
him.
It's
Sorry.
him. God,
Yeah.
the balls to show up now.
Crash your interview. This is actually secretly more like a Maury episode than anything.
Yeah.
No, I'm kidding. Sorry, go ahead.
um yeah, and everything else that I've like really had to deep dive process in my writing, like my own, like being bipolar, being in the mental hospital, my dad dying. It's like they all like they're very much like my experience,
Mm-hmm.
and they're sort of like closed chapters in a sort of way that it's not like this big open, remainingly open wound.
Mm.
But the divorce was like the first time that I was like, this involves another person. Um, and I think that's why like the writing of it took so long. And it took a long time for me to sort out, for me to even be able to have words to lock it down. Like
Right.
I think the first one I wrote of like the divorce material was like the first track off the album, which is just like Did We Try? And it's just kind of trying to like spin around in my head of like did we try to save this? Did you try? Did I
Right.
try? And it yeah, so it was a bit of a journey, and the the lostness was like pretty vast, and getting haunted by dreams, and like it just was like a big thing. And the final piece to find was the like deep anger,
Mm.
and like, you know, in this particular case he just pushed it past a line where finally I was like, man, fuck this guy. Like, I'm not gonna if he wants to write his own pissy album, he can, like, go ahead. But it's like, it's just,
Ah.
yeah, I don't want to, I am not interested in like, um it it's not even like that I like want everyone to turn against him, but I'm not gonna like stop myself from telling my story and my experience to protect him.
Right. And your point is basically once you saw what he was doing post divorce, you decided, okay, I'm not going to be quite as nervous or cautious about, oh, I'm involving somebody else because look at what they're doing. That what you're saying?
Yeah, and he's a deeply avoidant person. So it's like
Ah.
he whereas his way of dealing with the whole thing that he blew up was to just like kind of run from it. That has
Mm.
never worked for me. And like when I try to do that, I get severely depressed, and it's really dangerous for me. And
Huh.
the only way through, or the only way forward for me, is to go through. And so like I had to go through this, like, and process the hell out of it, like every inch, and then I can like get it to a place of catharsis. And it's funny, like now it's been 5 years, so it's funny that I think people are hearing this record and being like, are you okay? Like
Right,
I,
right. It
and it's like,
seems
this was
new.
5 years ago.
Yeah,
And I
yeah.
like, you know, like there's been a lot of layers of building a callus around the
Yep.
songs, and like
Yep.
I can like scream them on stage, and like mostly I feel like a deep pride in myself for having found a way through it.
Wow. Wow. That sounds very that's you I like the way you talk about how you use art as a way through things, I guess, or a way of filtering
Yeah.
things for yourself, digesting them, you know?
Yeah.
Because I think a lot of people do that, but I don't know if they could articulate it the way that you just did.
Hmm.
Clearly, you've put a lot of thought into it. Uh, just very, oh, yeah, okay. So it's been 5 years since the divorce. Obviously, and like you've said, you've developed those calluses and the scar tissue, so to speak, and now it's a closed chapter in a book of your life. Uh,
Yeah.
that's is it a concept album as a whole, or is it just all generally influenced but not quite
I
concept
didn't
level?
set out to make it a
Mm.
concept album,
Hmm.
but like I think just by proxy of it, I can only like afford to like record an album once every 4 or 5 years. So it's
Yeah.
like it ends up, and the songs that I write in that period come from me. So it's like there's a concept to what I wrestled with those years. And that was
Yes.
like largely divorce. And like kind of, I think the larger theme of it is actually me like taking the reins on my own life. And like I self-produced it,
Hmm.
and like me really truly steering the ship on my own. um, was like was very important for this album. And yeah, there's a few songs on the album that don't belong to the divorce story. Like Out of My Head is sort of a letter to my dad, who is like just like beautifully radical and like
Hmm.
and really strong-minded about like what he believed humans were capable of, like in an empathetic way.
Oh,
And it was sort of, yeah, that album is like me taking a look at myself and being like, he was like so uh sure about his like ideals and beliefs, and like I show up to protest late. Like I have the same like gut instincts, I think, but I'm still like figuring out how I take the stand that I want to take. And so but I think that ties into, and the divorce stuff, just in that it's like it's all me realizing that's like it's my path. It's like my vision that I need to be um steady about, because I'm the only one that can like drive this car.
absolutely. And I guess the process of learning that or relearning that was like you're saying, part of the album. Because I agree with you. It's not all just for anybody listening who is wondering what the content is of the album. Like, yeah, some of it is marriage or divorce material, but notably some of it is you coming off of that, you know what I mean, and getting through that.
Yeah.
So it's not all, I see what you're saying about how it's partially that, but just also where you're going after, you know what I mean. It's just as much about that and your individuality and progression.
Yeah, I think there's like Rebound was like kind of a smorgasbord of like different dates that didn't work out, and different like love stories I kept giving chances to that didn't work
Mm,
out. And it's sort of like the heartbreak and the triumph of like trying to like learn how I want to be in this world when it's just me that gets to have the say. Um,
right. Wow.
and Summer Jam is like an ode to the like summer romantic fling that like gives you life again, and you're like, okay, like this is this is good. Like, it's like looking for all the different signposts and then realizing that you're the only one that really gets to carve out the path in the end.
Totally. Absolutely. You describing all of that led me, there are many conversational avenues we could go down. One thing we should do at first, though, I think, is just maybe uh, get a handle on what your music sounds like. I'll talk a bit about it in the intro, but what would you say, this is tough and every musician hates this, but what would you say the genre or subgenre is of your music?
I think it can be quite open, but for this album, I think it's like an indie art rock pop sound. Like for this album, because of the content, it just got super direct and um
Right.
like it's dense. It's like I feel like the lyrics, there's no fluff. It's just straight to it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just because I had this like stuff like burning in me to just like get it out. And like the band, I think we like really tightened up. Um, I think my music in general can be like much more like open, and like I come from a classical background. I'm like a classical violist in town, and they like other albums of mine went more in like the folk direction, or like
Mm-hmm.
Motown, like horn section inspired arrangements. And the last album was very synth pop. um Sensations and Two Dot was like a doubt filled, um more open, like indie exploration. But this album is like a barn burner rager. I think.
I agree with everything you just said.
Okay.
That's all true. I've heard the different sort of sounds that you've got going on, and also seeing you live solo is a very different thing from seeing you live with the band, right? With the band, it is all of those sort of those four first words that you mentioned, like indie,
Yeah.
art, rock, pop. And then when you're on your own, I would say it's slightly, you almost weirdly hear the classical influence more sometimes, I find, just through your chord choices and your songwriting and the way that you play the piano or
Yeah. I
anything, in
think
my
a lot
opinion.
of the classical influence could probably be seen in my timing. Like I
Mm,
love in classical music that you use like with piano, like the use of rubato and like stretching time for the emotional effect of it.
right.
I love that. I can't like actually with my band now I can kind of like they will follow
Massage.
me,
Yeah,
but it's like when I'm solo, I like to like really juice that out.
totally. No, that comes through and it helps. You know, I think something that's tough if you're a solo performer is keeping it interesting because very often you're rooted to the spot because you're playing an instrument and singing usually, but you are able to keep that quality somehow. So congratulations on that, I guess is
Thanks.
what I was leading to. Um, but the other conversational avenue I kind of had in mind was you referenced your dad, you referenced his outlook sort of on life, but also how that would flow through into art. Um, what effect? What effect did your parents have on you artistically? But also, did they do anything artistic?
Yeah, so both of them, like my mom is a piano and art teacher. We had like a
Okay.
very like art strewn house growing up, just like every instrument just laying around for you to like
Wow.
try out and play. And very yeah, my dad also played guitar and piano. He'd play these like old he had tons of songbooks of like Cat Stevens and
Oh.
Joni Mitchell just layered up on the piano so I could like kind of dive through those at any time.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but both my parents creatively like or professionally, my dad was a psychiatric nurse practitioner, so like a psychiatrist basically, and
Right.
my
Wow.
mom is a therapist. So it was like I think our family we're so close. Like I have three brothers. We're really like strangely a tight woven crew
Huh.
still. And
Yeah.
but growing up, we'd have like these long dinners that were very um, talk based, like just. And if you brought home an art project or if you had a new song to show people, like we could just like talk the hell out of it. Like we just that's such an like surrounding like good food, cooking, and art. It's like it's such a wonderful place to all meet at and spend time with. And like my
And
family
grow
like
up
really
within, it sounds like.
yeah,
Yeah.
it
Very
was like
idyllic
so
for a
magic.
creative. Like no
Yeah.
wonder that you turned out with all of these interests and you have this outlook on life and wow, yeah, no that I that's an interesting are either of your or are your brothers, you said three brothers.
Yeah.
So
So
that do they do arts? Anything like that?
everyone like plays some music. I'm giving my brother Joe, who is a scientist,
Oh.
um, I'm giving him weekly piano lessons now on
Oh,
Zoom, which has
cool.
been really fun.
Yeah.
And he's just like un I'm just so blown away by how easy it's coming to him. Like it's like he
Oh.
hasn't really had piano lessons since middle school probably, but it's just like it's just in him. And then my older brother Mike is a he's in the photo industry in
Mm.
LA, so
Oh.
he's in that creative world. My brother John um, is not like working as a graphic designer anymore, but he's a musician and graphic designer, and he started the label that I'm on, Anything Bagel.
Oh, cool.
So and he like does all he did all the design for this album,
Wow.
uh, and he's an awesome songwriter musician too.
So very tight woven family even now. That is very nice.
Yeah.
Do you think you sort of implied this, but I want to know if I'm right. Do you think that comes from obviously the openness that was there that your parents created through being open to your creativity, but even just the long dinners that you had and long talks? Do you think it's as simple as that?
Yeah, I think we're all like interested in and invested in um our like human experience, and that's like the emotional part of that and the expressive part. And yeah, like we spent a lot of time like discussing our dreams and
Wait, like ambition dreams, or do you mean dreams asleep?
both.
Oh,
Like
okay.
my mom would like teach dream analysis workshops, so we would like talk about dreams a lot. And I'd say for me, like dreams as far as just like I was never like I'm gonna grow up and win a Grammy. It's more just like um yeah, just I love playing music. I love doing it. I like the writing of it. I like the community of it.
Mm-hmm.
The for me it was never like a professional dream. Like I need to make all my money from music and that's how I'll know I make it. It
Uh-huh.
was just like yeah, the dream of just getting to like dive into this and give it a lot of my heart.
Hmm. Yeah. You're very well adjusted. You have a very well adjusted outlook on art that I wish I
Yeah.
had. That I wish I had, and I'm sure it comes from your family. I would take a time machine. Was your family like the cool one that like if your friends were coming over, they'd be like, "I want to go to your house." Like your parents let us. Your parents are cool. They're not intimidating.
I think we had like a super loving family.
Right.
And it was like we lived out in the mountains. Like we were all like a bit too we're all like very shy, which is weird for me now because I feel like I never stopped talking. But like we're like a bunch of shy weirdos that like lived out in the woods and like we're like really each other's like best buds out there. And like yeah, I mean I always had like very good friends who liked coming over because it was like pretty festive. Like
Yeah.
um but I wouldn't say we were the cool kids.
No, no, I yeah, no, I don't I didn't mean cool like the way people think about like jocks in high school or something. I
Yeah.
mean cool as in every friend group, there's probably one house where they kind of congregate at for some reason. And I was wondering
Yeah,
if
I mean
that was
it
your
definitely
house.
um yeah, in high school my parents like our family sort of like had a big blow up and my mom moved into town. And so at that point we were like more accessible to all the friend groups
Hmm,
and we became like sort of a train station house like between four kids. There's just like it was
true.
fun like being in the middle of town and like this is in Helena, Montana. So it's like people could just like walk by and stop in and
Yep.
that what became fun.
Yeah, I was just going to ask about that. So tell me more about Montana. Like, so sorry, were you born there or did you just go there extremely young and kind of grow up a bit there?
I was born in Nebraska
Okay.
and then moved to Montana when I was 5. And yeah, we lived like 15 minutes outside of Helena, like in the mountains with a stream in front of our house and like
Wow.
a lake, probably like a 10-minute walk behind our house where we would go skating all winter long. And
Sounds
um,
amazing.
Montana's a very dreamy place. And I still spend a lot of time there because it's just, that's like my,
Yeah, you recently went back for like a writing camp or
I
festival or
teach like a kids art
you
camp there.
teached it. Oh, taught it. Okay, teached it.
Yeah.
Clearly, I should go. Um, wow. Okay, talk about it. I'm curious about that. I want to hear what it's
Art
like.
camp is like, yeah, my mom started teaching like kids art art
Hmm.
like after school classes and summer camps when I was in 8th grade, and I just always helped her. And then once I graduated from high school, I took them over, and it paid my way through college. And every year, I'm like, well, this will be my last summer of art camps because I need to like move on with my life and be an adult and like create my own
Yeah,
life somewhere.
my own camp.
And, yeah, and then every summer it comes up, and I'm like, I just kind of want to go to Montana.
Ah,
Like, it's all set up for me, and like
yeah.
they just fill up. They're this like, yeah, like some kids that I taught art camp through their whole grade school experience have like now gone on to art degrees in college, and they'll let me know what they're doing,
Oh my
and
God, how rewarding is that?
it's awesome.
Yeah,
It's like a tornado. Like it's exhausting. It's like 16 kids, 5 hours a day. And I
Yeah.
feel like I can't see straight when I'm doing it, but yeah, it's awesome.
What's the actual age? Like when you say kid, I feel like that could be anything under 16. Like what would you
Yeah,
say?
the camps are age 5 to 12. So it's an interesting big
Tornado.
range.
Yeah.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
so like the little kids are just like constantly like Rachel, 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 Rachel. They can't,
Oh.
they're just confused all the
Yes.
time.
Join the club, little kids.
Yeah.
Join the club. Uh, so forgive me if you mentioned this. How long are you there when you teach every summer now? Is it for the summer?
um this summer I took on 5 weeks of classes, but
Hmm.
like I'm gonna kind of bop between Toronto and there. It's always like a bit of a
Loose?
waiting game to see like what summer festivals I get into.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but lately I'm just needing to prioritize steady work. And so I usually opt for art camp. Um, yeah.
I was just gonna kind of ask about that, and if you're comfortable talking about it, like something that I've decided I like doing on this podcast, I guess, is helping to demystify the idea that an artist or a musician kind of only works in music or only does their own thing. Otherwise, they're not a working musician or something.
Yeah.
People grow up with these really actually incorrect, but sort of based on myth of past, musicians or whatever, what it actually looks like. So I want to demystify that, especially in this day and age where it's like there's seemingly the least amount of money in the industry that there's ever been before. So how do
Yeah.
you've already explained that your identity as a musician and your ambitions were never like Grammy oriented kind of thing, but I still think there can be sort of ambition to the point of I would like to live off of music, whatever that means. Uh, what what does your life look like right now as a musician plus other work, other than the camp that we talked about?
Yeah. So like the three main mosaic pieces of my like Toronto life
Yeah.
are playing my own music, which I'm um yeah, which tends to not like be a reliable income because in Toronto you have to like space out your shows so much and like
Exactly.
and then as a session player like I'm a violist and
Right.
sometimes we'll tour with other bands, but I've kind of become more precious about like how often I tour because it that can like directly draw away from what I'm doing with Zinnia.
Yeah.
And so that's a bit of a precious balance. But I love being in the recording studio and like I was just recording for Ali Sunshine and like
Oh
it
yeah.
just was so fun to be like, right, viola, like this is the thing I'm the most skilled at. And like
Mm.
it's so easy and fun to like bring it into someone's musical world.
Yeah.
And then the third piece is teaching. So 3 days a week I teach all on Zoom. Piano, violin, guitar, viola, songwriting. And most of that is like kids, like
Mm-hmm.
middle school and under. But there's a few I've gone into doing like creative sessions, I'm calling them, with adults who are like often professional in their artistic worlds who just want like a guiding light on like talking through
Oh,
where they
interesting.
might be stuck creatively or like just want some other eyes on the process. And that has been so interesting and fun to do. It's sort of like therapy
I was
in
just gonna say that last thing sounds a lot like your parents, you know?
yeah, because I think I mean who the hell knows what's going on with the music industry? I can't give people business advice,
Good Lord.
but I know that I have like a really healthy relationship with creativity.
Hmm.
And um it's really easy to like see it in someone else's life and be like it like I'm noticing that this is happening over and over that you're like getting to this point in the song and then bailing.
Hmm.
It's like
Right. It's like maybe take a
some
month to work on bridges. You haven't really, you keep hitting a wall when there maybe is a bridge coming, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, and often it's like it spirals so easily out into like life stuff of
Oh,
like,
yeah.
do you sort of feel like there's not a point in recording these songs because you don't trust the industry and you don't know what it's going to feel like to put music out at this unstable of a point.
Mm-hmm.
Um, all that, I mean, there's so much wrapped up in it.
Oh, yeah. Totally, totally. No, thank you for sharing those three sort of streams. That makes sense, and it sounds relatively common
Yeah.
for creatives in general. Uh, I'm curious, just a very small question: how do you advertise the creative, the songwriting class? Because I feel like everybody quickly understands classes about teaching an instrument, but songwriting,
Yeah,
that's kind of interesting.
those I just have a little note about it on my like um
Social
my
media or
music
something.
like yeah, like I have a little write up on my about like what instruments I teach and I have a little note in there about the creative sessions so that like if it piques an interest,
Mm-hmm.
people will kind of ask me and then every so often, I feel like every year I just do a little bit of a hustle for new students by just posting on Instagram and explaining that I've been doing these creative sessions. And it
Yeah.
usually pulls a few people out of the woodwork who are like, can I try that? And some people will just do a one off.
Mm-hmm.
Some people want it like a weekly check in. Some people,
Wow.
it starts with like, I want to do singing lessons with you. And then it turns out that it's, you start noticing different blocks for
Yes.
people and they're like actually can we just like talk about this album
Oh,
idea and it's
yeah.
like it can be a natural flow, it doesn't have to be so structured.
Huh. No, that sounds very nice, and that's a cool idea to add on to because obviously you have a lot of experience with that, and I think it's probably something that intimidates people. Songwriting, they're like, I know how to play an instrument, but and I like music, but I don't know how to craft a song. Uh, I want to talk a little bit about why Toronto. So you explained that you grew up in Montana, but so how do you end up or Nebraska and then Montana? But how do you end up here?
Yeah, first I went to music school in Victoria.
Okay.
I got into UVic for classical music and I did a viola degree there, um which was kind of a fluke because a band used to tour through Montana and my dad loved that band and he was like, let's check out where this fiddle player went to school because she's
Hmm.
doing cool things with it. And it just so happened to be like an interesting fit for me. Like I loved the place. It
Oh
seemed like
yeah.
such a big city to me. From
Okay.
the viewpoint of
Of
Montana, I was
course.
like, oh my God, there's multiple streets of downtown. Like this is crazy.
Yeah, yeah. Wow.
Yeah. And the viola teacher there, Jenna Hood, was a really good fit for me. And in our first, we had like a trial lesson, and she just kind of got me right away. She was like, I'll give you the tools and you do whatever you want with them. Like
Mm,
she kind of knew I wasn't like on a classical track.
right.
Um, and then the end of my time in Victoria, I like went to one last music festival
Mhm.
after graduating and getting my papers saying to leave Canada, and met my ex-husband at a festival.
And
And
so
then,
obviously that extends your ability to stay.
oh, it didn't. Like I just lived here illegally for
Oh,
a year or two until
okay.
till we got married, um, and then I eventually now I'm a dual citizen.
Oh, okay. Oh, okay. And then the marriage helps you stay theoretically. Is that
Oh yeah,
correct?
yeah,
Okay,
yeah,
gotcha. Whoa. Okay. And then so where you ended up at the end of the marriage was Toronto, and that's why you're still here?
yeah. Like it when things in the marriage blew up, I had a moment. I mean, the he blew stuff up a week before the pandemic hit, and so it's like
Oh,
I'm just
Jesus.
like alone in the basement suite trying to like reckon with it. Um, it was like really difficult to cross the border then, and I was
Hmm.
like, I had a moment of just feeling like, why am I here? Like, why am I in Canada? Why am I like far away from my family?
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I just one it's never felt right to me to like run home when things are crumbled for me
Hmm.
because I feel like it's like so comforting to go be with my mom and be in Montana, but like I sort of need to know that I can like get back on my feet where things crumbled,
Oh,
to not
right.
run away from it. And like,
Yeah.
so yeah, that I didn't go home for a year and a half until I could get vaccinated and felt safe about it. And
Hmm.
I just had to like slowly move through things and like build my life back together, like piece by piece. Um, and I love Toronto. Like
Hmm.
the musicians that I'm in conversation with here and the artists and the dancers, it's like I have like put my heart into Toronto. I didn't want the marriage to take that away from me when like I have really cared about this city
Hmm.
and it's cared about me back. Like I feel really beloved here. Um yeah, and now it just feels like that would have just broke my heart to like lose the city as well as everything else.
Okay, so it's been long enough now. You go. That was the right decision.
Yeah.
Right.
And I've been in Toronto for 14 years now. So it's like
Holy.
I've put my time in
Yeah,
here.
you've certainly put your time in. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Wow. Wow. Okay. I want to get into the name. Why zinnia? You just really like the flower?
Oh, I'm glad you know it's a flower.
I, my mom really likes flowers, so that's why.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I when we were leaving Omaha, my dad and I had planted like I was 5 years old and we'd planted like a bed of zinnias.
Mm-hmm.
And ever since then, whenever he saw some zinnias, he'd be like, "I saw your favorite flower today." And I was like,
Oh,
"Oh, it's not my favorite flower. Like my favorite flowers are lupins."
okay.
But I loved that. I don't know. Even if someone like yeah, even if he got it wrong that it's not my favorite flower, it was like our flower like that just connected us.
Yeah, it's
And
him being thoughtful still, you
yeah,
know?
it's just
Yeah.
him keeping me in mind. And
Yeah, yeah.
um also like since I named the band that, I used to go under my own name,
Mm-hmm.
Rachel Cardiello, but it's like it's a mouthful and I didn't like that like my bandmates couldn't have the same ownership of it.
Ah,
Like we would be playing a festival and I'd watch people be like, time my bass player be like, "Well, what band do you play in?" And he'd be like, "I'm playing with Rachel Cardiello." And I wanted him to be able to like own it
mm-hmm.
as much as I was. Um, and people were like, it's hard to spell Cardiello for some people. Um,
Gotcha.
and yeah, I just wanted something like zippy. Um, but like since then, people have sent me pictures of their zinnias growing,
Aw.
and like I guess zinnias often um, are associated as like a grief flower. Like there's something, and so there's a lot of imagery with it that ended up speaking to me like after I chose the name sort of haphazardly.
Mm-hmm.
I like that they're one of the last flowers that hold on to their color and vibrancy into the first frost. Like
I
they're
didn't know that.
tough.
Wow. Hmm.
And I just like, yeah, and now I feel like so attached to that flower.
Well, that makes me wonder. Okay, I understand everything you're saying about wanting the rest of your band members to be able to take the same ownership, kind of, and
Mm.
be going. I'm in this band as opposed to playing with. Uh, so that leads me to wonder, how do you all write? Do you still write the skeleton? Let's say the skeleton of the song, and then you bring it to the band, and then everybody gives their
Yeah,
input. Yeah.
I think they're like very 100% my songs and my writing. There's like there's definitely creative collaboration in me like guiding them into the sound that's in my head.
Right.
And
Right.
um that it's like been like really important to me to like choose the right musicians and
Sure.
like
Sure.
and this crew, I just trust them so much to like help me find um what, because a lot of times like I don't have the words to get to what I'm
Mm-hmm.
hearing. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like a bit of a journey of being like more of like a garage band beat there. And Max like, do you just mean like four on the floor? I'm like, yeah. It's like
Yeah.
but it's like they're especially in the recording process, they were like really down to like be patient with me like while we found what I was hearing.
Mm-hmm. Wow, which is what you need. That's, they sort of inherently understand you even when you're not articulating exactly what you mean, and also they're open to that.
Yeah.
One last thing about the name. If I'm not mistaken, sometimes it's or yeah, I don't know. You tell me. Is it all capitalized? It's all caps?
It's all capitalized when I write it. Facebook
Okay.
won't let you do that, so
Okay.
whatever.
And I was, well, no, that's fine. And I was just wondering because some people these days are doing all lowercase. Some people are doing uppercase. Like, why?
I
It's
just
cool,
like the
but
lines. I like the Z.
okay.
I like how the lines, but I also like it all lowercase as well. But I've just always like I liked the angles of the lines.
For sure. It's
Yeah.
visually appealing. It's not yeah, I get you. Okay, cool. Then why don't we get into the main four questions, and that'll still
Okay.
give us conversational avenues. Uh, okay. So what do you think is your favorite gig thus far? Playing with, I guess, let's say from Zinnia onward.
Sure. We had the time of our lives playing Dawson City Music Festival this summer.
Mm-hmm.
Um, it was the only show we did. Like I just haven't been able to prioritize touring. I can't take the financial risk of it.
Yeah.
And it's heartbreaking because like we would just play every night if we could. We love playing. And so it's like but Dawson City Music took us on, and like they cover all your travel up there. So
Wow.
we played, and I know the director of it, Corbin Murdoch, like has known me for a long time. So he just trusted me in like the wildest variety of stages. Like we played a chapel show,
Oh,
and we just
actual
did that one.
stages.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought you meant like progressive stages, but you mean he supports you
Oh,
through multiple
yeah. Like
stages.
we played like three different sets at the festival,
Wow.
and one was like in a dive bar at 1 a.m. This like epic dive bar with like a fence around the stage, and like I was just like spent most of the set on the fence, like with my
Uh-huh.
face pushed up on the ceiling. Like it was like wild Yukon, like
Cool.
I don't know, dive bar madness. And
Yeah.
then we played like the main stage was like this big tent in an open field, and everyone's like sweaty and dancing. And we played like a little chapel show that we just broke it down into a duo set, and I
Mm-hmm.
like went more towards the classical side and played it mostly on like piano and viola, and just like opening the songs up.
Hmm.
um that was like, I felt like that festival just gave us a chance to like stretch out into our full spectrum. Felt
Right.
so good.
No, that sounds amazing. Had you ever visited up north there before? No.
No.
No. So that
Yeah, I
sounds,
know
yeah,
the
what a
bottom of Canada really well by now,
right.
but never north.
Wow. No, that sounds wonderful. I am curious before we get to the worst gig. I guess I'm curious if there was one with just you doing, let's say you solo pre just as Rachel.
Hmm.
If you had if you have a different favorite, or is that
A
like
different
out and out
favorite?
your favorite? Yeah.
Oh yeah, I loved, I really I sort of just need the catharsis of the
Mm,
live show.
hmm.
And so it's really important to me to try to like do whatever I can to make sure that like we're actually all connecting on stage, or if it's just me, that I'm like really connecting with the space and being like true to myself of like what songs will actually feel really like giving right now,
Mm.
and actually like plug me into like the lightning bolt of this moment. um I can't, I yeah, I think the worst shows are the ones that I just like try to just I wasn't actually present for, where I just was exhausted or mentally kind of absent,
Okay.
and tried to just like do the songs that I thought I should do.
Right. Just run through them. Just like I guess I should do these ones. Uh, what is that? Is there a show that where that happened that really sticks out?
Yeah, when I saw that you asked that question, I like sort of was rifling through, and the summer of 2019, we had released a few Zinnia songs, but the whole album hadn't come out yet. And like I was traveling like playing the music as a duo with my ex-husband, who was the guitarist in my band. And we were just like, I see it in retrospect now. At the point, I didn't have the mental clarity to know it, but we were just hitting dead ends over and over, like as a couple.
Hmm.
And I was like, I was just like severely anxious and depressed. Like I'd been having panic attacks for a month, and like my body was just shaking, and like I
Wow.
should have just, I wish we had just stopped. Like I wish that we had just like stopped so I could get healthy. And like, but we just felt like, oh, we already agreed to these shows, and we ended up playing in like some like taco joint in like inner BC,
Yeah.
and playing to like maybe two people in the room were listening, and there was like two other dudes just eating hamburgers, just like staring at us and giving us nothing. And
Uh,
we just played the songs, and then afterwards I had to like bring the hat around, and the two burger guys like just gave nothing.
uh,
And they wouldn't like even put like a toonie in, and I
uh,
was just like, and we're sleeping on someone's floor that it was like very nice to like have someone put us up, but like
of
she
course.
didn't know us and didn't come to the show, and it just was like, it just felt grueling, and in this way that felt like dangerous to me mentally. And especially with that, the music that we were touring there was so open-hearted.
Hmm.
Like it just was so raw, and it's too fragile of music to put into those spaces. Like if I went back to that time, I would just play covers. Like there's no reason to like put myself through that emotional
Yeah.
distress for those two dudes eating hamburgers. Like
No, who clearly were rude about it anyway and didn't cared more about the hamburger.
yeah. But that was like, it's not even those two dudes' fault. It's like the
No,
setup
no.
of like not adjusting to the space, and like being like, okay, it's nice that this place hosts music as like an in between to like, we were on our way to a different festival, which
Yeah.
then like really appreciated the music. It's more just that like I gotta have another set ready so
Hmm.
that I'm not like pouring my heart out onto stage when I'm just like background filler music.
Have you developed that set?
I'm just better at now just saying no to those gigs.
No.
But like, yeah, now I have enough songs. Like, also when I have the band with me, it just dances. So even if
Yeah.
I find when I'm solo or duo, it is just like, it's more emotional, it's more bare bones. Um, but yeah, I think when I'm mentally healthy, like it's easier for me to steer the ship.
Sure. Yeah, no, that makes sense. And obviously that was a really tough time. So I mean you were getting it at both ends. It was like kind of a crappy moment playing as a musician and in your relationship, which you couldn't escape from because it was part of your
Yeah.
performing act.
And my relationship to like the music industry at that time was way more of like a road dog. Like you just show up and you do the gig. And it was like, no. When you're having a panic attack for a
Hmm.
month and your like body is like shaking, you don't have to do that. Like that,
Yeah, don't gotta
that is
be a road
not,
dog.
no one cares. Like those gigs did not need me to show up.
Well, yeah, and not only that, it's like, yeah. Anyway, yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
You're right, and that's really good. And sounds like you're prioritizing your health and that kind of thing, which is what people should do. Uh, oh yeah, the one thing I quickly will ask when I usually ask those show questions is, have you ever been in a interesting green room? Interesting for any reason, bad or good?
Yeah, there's a green room, and one of my first tours, like as a backup singer,
Mm-hmm.
I was traveling with Harpoonist and the Axe Murderer and
What a name!
Jody
Wow.
Peck, or
Okay.
Jody Quincy was her music then. Um, and I have the sign still. I'll show you.
Yeah, let's see.
This was in the green room of a venue in Winnipeg. This attention all staff, in September 2012, August 2013, our total loss of sales on chips was approximately $2,100, or 1,200 bags of chips were eaten. Obviously, this stops now. No more freebies. All chips must be paid for. Staff chips are now $1. These cannot be rung in as there is no key. Put the loonie in the till and record staff chip sales on the contract.
Oh
I
my
just,
God.
I like could not believe the sign. And then one of the people working there was like, just take it.
That's hilarious. What
Yeah.
I just love put the loony in the till.
The loonie.
Yeah.
Yeah. And this stops now.
It stops now. That person just had a really bad night and they wanted a bag of chips and all the chips were gone or something.
Oh,
Something
yeah.
like that happened.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. I could totally understand when sometimes you see bars now that play music or they have comedians and they go no limitless drinks because that can get into a real mess. But like chips, come on.
But it's like it added up like $2,100.
That is insane. That is a lot.
It's a lot of chips.
That is a lot. Yeah. They should have just switched to being a chip shop at that point.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Well, thanks for sharing that one. And showing the evidence. That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Okay. So then let's get into your song specifically. What do you think is your best song? Whatever that means.
I think like Bullets from my last album is one that like I have just seen reach people. Like it really like it was like difficult to write it, in that like it just was like a collection of stories and experiences from people in my life, and it's like it just, you hold them with you for so long, and then it just started escalating to the point that's like I need to find somewhere to put this, like a vessel to put this, so I can kind of like make some sort of sense of it. And it created like, it almost, the catharsis of writing that song was helpful to just like kind of look at it all as one. And it's like an experience of women in my life dealing with things that I had always thought were just statistics of abuse and just hardship, and like trying to reckon with that and not having a solution for it, but just like looking at the data of like the real people in my life and just feeling the weight of it. And so that song I've seen really hit people.
Yeah, when you say hit, sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, I think and the way our band carries it allows it to just breathe. Like it's so weighted that it's like it could be like too much for people to take on. But something about like the synth and the beat of it like lets it just keep driving forward. Yeah, so I'm very like proud of that one.
That's valid. That sounds like a very good reason to be proud of that one. The one thing I was going to ask was when you said that people, it clearly touches people. Is that some? And you said you've seen it. I assume some of that is hearing verbally people come up to you or on social media or whatever and tell you about it. But can you also see it from the stage? Is it something that you're like, wow, this is having an effect on people?
Yeah, like that's a real like weeper one that I'll like look out and see people weeping. But that song in particular, I kind of get into my own place with it. So I'm not
right.
Like,
you're not analyzing the audience as you perform it.
Yeah. Not, and in some songs I really am. Like I love watching the reactions. But that one in order to like not like to kind of like do those stories justice, I like try to go pretty like inward with it so that I can like really be present with them and not like
Hmm.
using them, is how it could kind of feel.
Huh.
Like I don't want to feel like I'm manipulating the emotion of those stories for my own use.
Hmm.
Um,
That's very noble. I think a lot of people wouldn't even think twice about it.
yeah, I think just most of my songs are me.
Hmm.
And so that one was like me through other people. Um, and that song, like people have gone out of their way like since it was released to tell me how it's moved them. And like
Wow.
so I really like that's an honor too to just like hear where it's bringing people, and it's kind of intense, that one.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's great. That's a good choice for best then. I guess we're at the worst. So what are you gonna choose for worst song?
I had one friend in Victoria, and I remember like starting to write one song, and I always kind of like show him my songs as like he always thought I was like so brilliant, and he'd like
Hmm.
shower me in compliments, and like he just kind of ate it up. And there was
Yeah.
one song I wrote towards the end of a, a relationship that just was like really shouldn't have gotten my time of day, and like
Hmm.
I wrote some kind of silly song, and it was just I don't even remember what this song was like, but I do remember this guy's like he just had such a visceral reaction to it, and he just like I stopped playing it, he just looked at me, he's like, that's kind of stupid.
Oh
I
my
was like,
God.
and I just like was shocked because he had never like he just loved kind of seemingly anything I did. And then I was
Yeah.
like, oh my God, you're so right. This is like a stupid song. And it was just like sort of silly. And I was like, man. And so I just threw that one out because I like as soon as he said it, I just like knew it so clearly and was like, yeah, this is a bad one.
What
And
that
it's the
tell
only song
Go
I
ahead.
feel like most songs it's like it's a processing thing. So like I never like try to judge a song too early or something.
Yeah.
But that song, it was like, no, this is just not worth it.
That's stupid. What I was gonna say was, if he was just complimenting, sometimes there are those people, and it feels really good. Just they think I'm a genius for some reason. It just feels nice. But then you wonder, or do they actually like anything? Like, does their
Yeah,
opinion even matter if they'll just be happy? So the
right.
fact that he said it was bad actually is proof that he probably really liked everything else.
Yeah, it gave me a trust in like, okay, so the other stuff was good.
Exactly.
he's not just
Exactly.
he's not just flattering me.
Exactly. Okay, so then I'm going to assume that that is not publicly available because you stopped writing it.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't think any of the songs that are publicly available are bad. And like they like I can listen to my first EP that's on the internet um and hear that I was like so much younger.
Yeah.
But there's something so precious about that of being like, man, I was only like 20 and that's my 20-year-old voice. And like even at that time, like I was really like going through hard stuff and like trying
Mhm.
my best to make sense of it.
Mhm.
And like I'm so different than I was then, but it's like it's still valid. It's like part of me.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I The only reason I'm pushing, the only reason I'm digging is because I like to have a song to play at the end,
Oh
and
yeah.
usually it's the worst song. So maybe we can just shift the question a little bit.
You
How
know
about
what?
Okay, yeah.
Can I does it have to be something like could I send you?
Oh, absolutely. We can do that if you
Okay.
want.
I
Yes.
have one song that didn't make it onto this album, but my friend Jaron Freeman Fox always thinks that it needs to be. But
Okay.
it was just like part of the like finally getting pissed off at my ex-husband. And there's a line in it that is so fun to sing.
Mhm.
But it goes like if you don't like it, you can write your own song. If you don't like it, you can suck your own ding dong. And love singing it, and I'm like, I'm not gonna put that on an album. Like,
Yeah.
I don't need to like waste recording resources on that line,
Right.
but it has to be that line.
It does have to be that line, and I'm excited for people to hear that because we're absolutely playing that song
Okay.
when it's okay. So then, if you first of all, thank you so much for coming on and giving yourself over the conversation and being forthcoming and everything. What we do at the end is you just reiterate what your name is, band name, and then the song you've just chosen. So whatever that song, if you want to take it
Okay.
away.
My name is Rachel Cardiello. My band is Zinnia. And the worst song I ever wrote is Like the Wind.
Like the Wind. Okay, thank you very much for coming on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was so fun.
The question is not if I will learn to love you. The question is not if I can learn to love you. But will I ever put my life beside you? And could I ever put my life beside someone again? I always prefer to dance alone. I always felt a little control. When we would dance, it's not only you, it's any old fool. Won't do like I do, move how I move. Like honestly how the wind gets to move. You did me wrong. You treated